So when Amun named that land the beautiful land, the word for beautiful, Mary, M-A-R-E in some spellings, Mary. And the land means Ta, T-A, Ta, the land of, beautiful land, Ta Mary. And Tamari is still applied to the land. And just as the ancient Africans said, there is a northland and a southland. Now we have North Tamari and South Tamari. We simply move the ta to the end of the word and call it America. South America, North America, you're living in the land that was named by Egypt. Tamari and South Tamari, we simply move the ta to the end of the word and call it America. South America, North America, you're living in the land that was named by Egypt. Pyramid on the Nile in Northeast Africa doesn't have stair steps going up it. It doesn't have temples on top of its summits. They could not go and break through the boat on the temples atop those great pyramids. There are none there. And that was the clue that Egypt was writing about the Americas. And the deeper I got into the records, the clearer it got. They started actually saying on the temples atop those great pyramids, there are none there. And that was the clue that Egypt was writing about the Americans. And the deeper I got into the records, the clearer it got. They started actually saying, and because Amun loved that land so much, he said it's his beloved land, and that word was Mary, the beloved. Mary, M-E-R-I, Mary. And the land, of course, as before, is Ta. So you have the land, the beloved land, Ta Mary. And they kept that name and just put the Ta on the end of it. So Ta Mary became a Mary Ta. We simply say America. We kept the name that Egypt gave to the Americans. So that was the big mystery behind that $10 million map that Martin Waltzmuller made and then put the name America on it in 1507.
A prominent French-American geologist who, while studying North America, argued, as did other 19th century writers, that the name America was brought back to Europe from the New World, and that Vespucci had changed his name to reflect the name of his discovery. In his work titled New Research on the Origin of the Name of America and the Origin of the Name of America, that was published in the Atlantic Monthly of March 1875, Jules Marco wrote regarding the origin of the name America, in which he introduced the name of an American Indian tribe and of a district in Nicaragua called Amérique, and asserted that this district, rich in gold, had been visited by both Columbus and Vespucci, who then made this name known in Europe through the Marcos map. For both explorers, the words Amérique and gold became synonymous. Subsequently, according to Marco's account, Vespucci's authentic Christian name was Alberigo Vespucci, or Alberscus in Latin, in which he changed to Amerigo after his voyages to the Americas, meaning Amerigo came from America and not the other way around. In the book entitled The Romance of the Name America by Heinrich Charles, we find a most compelling fact, stating that Vespucci lived at the time of the greatest fervor and the absolute supremacy of Roman Catholics, and these two other signatures with the Christian name Amerigo were recorded. It should be noted that prior to 1507, the date of the publication of the name Americus by Jane Bassett at St. Dean, the name is not to be found in any printed document or in any manuscript document of recognized and unquestionable authenticity. These facts imply Vespucci being more of a crafty opportunist than an American hero worthy of glorification. In the mid-Georgia, the Honorable Joseph M. Brown have tried to prove that Vespucci changed his name so as to make it consonant with the word that was prevalent all over South and Central America. Governor Brown says in his work entitled Astyanax, an epic romance of Ilion, Atlantis, and Amaraka, that evidence seems to prove that Amerigo Vespucci,
Alright, we're in the book Ancient Mystic and Oriental Masonry and the Teachings and Rules and Laws and Present Usage, which governs the order of the present day. True Masonry and the Universal Brotherhood of Man are one. You see, we got the cross, the big G, and the I. So you said they got you got your big G for God, your three for your symbolize the Trinity, and the all-seeing eye of, I guess we're gonna call him a brackets. I'm sorry, y'all. You know what I'm saying? Some of these videos be low, man. Either I be taking care of a baby, I'm at work in the aisles, you know what I'm saying, around managers or something, and I'm still trying to get this shit off. So, you know what I'm saying? Work with me sometimes. One of these days, I'm gonna get them all edited up and taken care of and shit, so that it's easier to, you know what I'm saying, to hear. Right now, we right here, and it says the Master Mason J.D. Buck, which he said initiation and recognition and synonymous terms in the rituals of Freemasonry is based in this natural law. That the ceremonies and initiations illustrate every step in the principle and its result attain its possession rather than its regeneration. In the great majority of cases, the principle remains nonetheless true. The mere inclination of moral principles or lessons in ethics and their symbolic illustration and the dramatic representations are by no means in vain. These appeals to the consciousness of the moral sense of every man, and no man has ever been made more worse by the lessons of the lodge, by the rights of the benefits of Freemasonry. It is above all men in our so-called modern civilization, the nearest of the ancient wisdoms. He has the possession of the territories in which he conceals the crown jewels of wisdom. He may content himself, if he will, by merely turning over the sod of the gathering, only the crop of the husk of stubble. He may dig deeper to find not only the keystones of the Ark of the Covenant, the scroll of the law, but using the spirit concealed on the wings of the cherubim, he may rise untrampled by the rubbish of the temple and the meeting of Elohim face to face, learning also that I am that I am. Does this read like rap shitty? Hey, hey, I am that I am. Hey, hey, Hawa. However you say it, does this read like rap shitty and the landmark traditions, the glyphs of Freemasonry, nothing more? And again, the universal sciences and sublime philosophies once taught by the great mysteries of Egypt, Chaldea, Persia, and India. And as we done on our Algonquin conquest of the Mediterranean, you see that that lines right up with what we talking about. It says, Benaiah, having ascertained that Nathan the prophet was in the house of Abiathar, and the former high priest of King David, repaired to the place, but found Nathan had died of old age but a very short time. His arrival, he thereupon set about to return, and discovering a stranger wandering near the secret crypt, thereupon he took him into custody and brought him before the secret council. The stranger provided to be Abedimon, a very wise man and a subject of Hiram, the king of Tyre. Upon examination, it was found that He had been initiated as a entered apprentice, passed to the degrees of the fellow craft, and raised a sublime degree as a master mason by Sassane and Scribe, who was journeyed into the country by Tyrians, so that the secrets of masonry preceded Hiram, king of Tyre, into his own dominions. Abedimon, being a master mason and being recognized as a very learned and crafty man by King Hiram, was at length admitted to the secret council after giving into the hands of King Solomon a manuscript that had been given to him by the wonderful mysteries manners by an Egyptian during the time he was held in confinement by the secret council. Solomon was so pleased with the manuscript that he then and there admitted Adamon to be a member of the secret council, which was then sitting. Adamon to turn felt himself so highly honored that he begged to leave and received permission to journey into the land of Egypt and be initiated into the secrets of the initiates of the Great Pyramid, and in turn promised to journey back into the lands of the Israelites and disclose the secret council what he had learned. Adamon was successful in his efforts in following the degrees, whereas initiated to preserve the knowledge which Adamon gained in the land of Egypt in his journey initiation in the Great Stone Pyramid, second kings of pioneers, and third degree master of the secret cavern. It says the ancient and mystic order of rights in the universe is open to every master mason who believes in the fatherhood of God and the universal brotherhood of all men. The other qualifications necessarily of the neophyte, which is the new Christian, is that he shall be honorable and upright in his dealings. The cradle of the symbology, the symbolism used in all masonry is placed by many of the best authorities in that country which they believe was first inhabited, i.e. the plateau of Tartary. The plateau of Tartary, so they believe they came out of the motherfucking steppes. All right, let's keep it moving. And from the transmitted this generation to sages in India, Persia, and Ethiopia and Egypt. So, back there, I've gone from conquest to the Mediterranean, Ethiopia, who are not indebted to either ancient Egypt for either religion or masonry, but to America, is the fact that Memphis, Egypt, and the pyramids, under the guidance of the king of the mystic rites of masonry, were worked many thousands of years ago. But at the time of Egypt, the continent of America were one and the same, and America, rediscovered in the 15th century, repopulated in the 17th, was rediscovered. Egypt is the promised land, the land of the eagle, and the constellation of the eagle. No matter how numerous or complicated the work, there's a lot, many be if the right key is applied. The Great Pyramid proves that the alongside key of the mysteries at once of the mythology of the great world religions, especially interesting it is to the Americans in this year that the Columbian celebration of the 400th anniversary of Rediscover America, and blah, 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 blah. Okay, America, aka Atlantis, and as the certain which here too concealed the prehistoric connection between the peoples of ancient Egypt and America is lifted, it will be seen that the people of the eagle on the Nile, being descended from the original people of the eagle on the continent, the twain are one, that the prehistoric America was an original Egypt or eagle land prior to the mighty dispersion in the dispersion of the days of Peleg, which the earth was divided and the great globe itself nearly rent asunder. It says Agassiz, firstborn among the continents, America has been falsely denominated the New World. Hers was the first on dry land lifted out of the water. Hers was the first shores washed by the ocean, enveloped all the earth besides. And while Europe was represented by islands rising here and there above the sea, America, Atlantis already stretched in an unbroken line of land from Nova Scotia to the far west. Where the boy say, my man Osiris was from the west. Let's keep it pushing. It says so if would be inevitably be driven by the trade winds to the coast of America. Others judging that the similarity of the religious rites or conjecture that the people by the 10 tribes and dispersion of Israel, something it is received by the population of China or Japan, other that it was colonized by the wandering tribes of Japhet who pertained it to trackless regions of North America by the Straits of Asia. Some had been told enough to assert that America was not uh, inundated at the deluge, at the consequently the Aborigines were antediluvians and the most ancient people on earth, which the assertion is correct. People so over America descend, or it is whatever manner that the vast continent was originally furnished with human beings. It is certain that the first inhabitants brought with them the systems and the mysteries which they applied to the purpose of religious worship, and through the systems and process of time we almost entirely lost amongst the scattered tribes which led an erratic life in the deepest, wildest, yet many of the truths of which it was founded were preserved in the deteriorated form. The two great nations which or planted themselves on each side of the Isthmus of Panama. These who erected the obelisks in Egypt and covered them with hieroglyphs, who wrapped the mummies and embalming them with the greatest care, than no more than the pyramid builders and we do today. The majestic, voiceless sentinels of the pyramids and the head uncovered and lifted heavenward stood there with the broad plain, silent, dumb, no one to explain the origin of when the Egyptian civilization began.
Bloom and the time farmers plant and harvest their crops. Its cyclical path in the sky, as well as that of other planets and stars, have become associated with many religions, both pantheistic and monotheistic, even if much of the population is no longer aware of it. Astrotheology is a name given to the influence that celestial objects have on religion, and the cyclical pattern in the heavens was tracked carefully to not only time when to carry out sacrifice and fertility rituals, but was also vital to seafaring people, such as the ancient Phoenicians, to be able to navigate their ships at night. While many people associate the Phoenicians with purple because of the famous imperial purple dye that they made from seashells, the name was actually given to them by the Greeks and comes from the Greek word phoinos, meaning red. There are several reasons for this, which I'd argue are more relevant than the reddish purple dye. First of all, they applied red ochre to their skin, a practice which was mimicked by the Minoans, another ancient seafaring civilization genetically related to the Phoenicians, but immediately predating them, as well as the ancient Egyptians, Mycenaeans, which refers to a period of Bronze Age Greece, the Etruscans, which were a culture in Italy right before the Roman Empire, and other ethnically related people which dominated the entire Mediterranean, from Southern Europe to North Africa to the Levant, or Phoenicia. In fact, this practice of red ochre stretches all the way back into the Pleistocene, or Ice Age, and was done by Cro-Magnon, who also covered their graves in red ochre.
Now, what we got into the Cro-Magnon men yesterday, they were Negroid, right? They were Negroid. Okay, we're going to go back to that document a little bit later. Sorry, this should be cutting me off. Olivero protagonist emphasized the Venero on the Negroid from the Grimaldi. Negroid from the Grimaldi Grothe.
Or Ice Age, and was done by Cro-Magnon, who also covered their graves in red ochre, as well as their descendants, the ancient Basque, and as far away as the New World by Native Americans genetically related to the ancient Basque, called Solutreans, where the term redskins comes from, in terms of Indians, which had to do with the red ochre paint that they applied to their white skin. I'll include a link in the description to
the whole writing this out was just that. But anyone that takes the time out, without being ignorant, right. You actually take the time out.
I'm Derek Hankerson, and I'm with FirstCoast.tv. This morning, I'm with my cousin B, and we're at Flagler College for the Yamasee Conference. B, good morning. Can you explain to the non-natives what B stands for?
B in our language, which our language is the language of Hichiti. A lot of the Mikosuki people speak a form of it right now, but B means head chief, and me being head chief of the Yamasee Indian Nation.
Is the Yamasee Nation a federally recognized tribe?
Well, that's a twofold question, and sometimes people lack the understanding of federal recognition versus federal acknowledgement. Federal acknowledgement is what we do have, and federal acknowledgement comes from various forms: treaties, federal court orders, and or the process where you petition the Bureau of Indian Affairs to be actually recognized. Now, once you receive or you put forth a treaty and make sure that your tribe is a part of that treaty, and or you prove that you have a federal acknowledgement through court documentation, you can now use that in order to be federally recognized. We have federal acknowledgement through federal court documentation, and it's nothing that we put on record or publicized through online documentation and whatnot like that. But we do have federal acknowledgement through federal court system recognizing us as a legitimate tribe based on the standards of what a tribe is.
How do we distinguish between the Creeks and the Yamasees?
Well, that's a very complicated but simple question, and it was posed yesterday at the conference. What was the distinction? And what we found is that we know historically there was no difference. The Yamasee were renamed the Creeks. The Creeks did not exist until after the Yamasee War of 1715. If you get the book or you find yourself ever wanting to research a book, the invention of the Creek Nation identifies that inside of the documentation. It says that the name Creek was created for a political purpose, which would be basically land acquisition. So I think to try and piece this thing together or the puzzle together for people will create disruption of history. I think it would upset a lot of people because you have a nation now called the Creek Nation that is federally recognized, and people are like, well, why aren't the Yamasee recognized if they are actually the Creeks?
Right.
And some of that supporting factor was the Yamasee was the only tribal nation here in the Southeast that had an upper and lower chiefdom.